Let me just stick with Gino just for 1 second, because you gave a pretty good overview, but one of the key components, it's not always about money, but
Right.
in the case of an owner's project manager, I know there are quality issues, oversight issues, coordination issues. But as you know, with me, sometimes it's going to come down to the cost as well.
It always does.
It always does. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that in my dealings through this process, the big value to me in an OPM is the ability to discern added on cost that could be shed, things like that. So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, in terms of the way I see it, an OPM almost, or probably most of the time, earns back the fee through efficiencies that you've driven through the system. Do you agree? Or
Absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest things we tout in the industry is our fee, because everyone wants to know what our fee is. Why are we spending this additional money? Quite frankly, we give you back mostly multiples of our fee because of our expertise, our ability to negotiate, to understand when someone's overreaching, to understand if the project is going as per plan. We have a lot of expertise to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing in an efficient manner. So yes, we're always asked, why are you spending the additional money for an OPM? And we always come back saying that we're the people who are going to make this happen, and to advise you, again, as I keep on saying the word advise, for you to make proper decisions. If the town or the district does not have the in-house capacity to understand what they're being asked to make decisions upon, you may make an erroneous decision, which could multiply itself throughout the project. So again, our fee is here, our status is here to make sure that you hopefully save multiples of our fee, but we definitely know you'll have a much better project by us being involved.
And I do honestly agree with that, and I think, again, it's been a huge improvement in the new MSBA system over the old DOE system, which was sort of unwieldy. And as a local, I always say it, and people scratch their heads when I say it, but leaving the locals totally in charge, I don't think served either the locals or the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the taxpayers.
If I may add, it's always good to have checks and balances. Everyone works better when someone knows they're watching them.
Yes.
And so that's what the OPM does, quite frankly. They know someone is watching them.
Yeah, and it is a check and balance. And on the fiduciary part, obviously, under the regulations now, you work for the city.
Right.
But you also report back to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Absolutely. And have some responsibility to them as well. So the MSBA continues a pretty strict oversight, and you're a big part of that project. I know we're going to be coming up on the break. Before we do go to the break, though, I want everybody in this room to point to the person that's in charge here and that we all call the boss. Who would that be? There's Suzanne Lamoureux, who is the chair of the building committee, and we're going to talk a little bit more to Suzanne when we come back on the other side of the break. She thought she would get through the program without speaking, but how did you become the chair of the building committee? Were you elected?
No, I was appointed.
You were appointed. All right.
I think I owe somebody something. I don't know.
Well, Suzanne is currently, what is your position?
I'm an interim associate principal at Marsh Grammar School.
The Marsh Grammar School. So we have an educator who is also, are you an architect?
No, I'm an engineer.
Oh, you're an engineer.
I'm an engineer.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
okay.
an engineer.
Yes, an engineer. What is the difference between an engineer and an architect?
We won't go there
All right.
today.
Is that common sense?
You set up your own joke.
Yes, I did. I'm sorry. And since you wouldn't pull the trigger, I had to. We will come back and talk to the three of these folks about where we're at today on the project, where we're going down the road, and we're hoping to have them back periodically to give progress reports because, as everybody knows, there is curiosity. We'll talk about when the school building meetings are, and we'll do all that on the other side of this break, so stay with us. Thank you.
When life's this hard, graduating can be even harder. but you can help Ativa and the students in your community make it through by visiting boostup.org.
Welcome back to the Mayor's Corner, and we are today talking about the new renovation of Methuen High School, and we were conversing with the building committee chair, Suzanne Lamoureux. Suzanne, what does a building committee chair do?
Oh, wow. Well, try to keep the mayor in line and make sure all the documents get in and processed. And actually, I talk a lot, have many email conversations with the OPM, and they talk with the designers. So basically, we keep the project on track. We review everything that comes before the community as far as what the potential improvements and renovations and costs, and everything has to run through us before it goes forward with recommendations from us. And then where appropriate, if we need votes from school committee or city council, but it's a lot of organization.
It's a lot of organization. We have the right person for that. But we have somebody that is actually a unique value for us in Methuen, somebody that, even though we do tease her too, we have both an engineer and an educator here. Let's talk about that convergence, first with Suzanne, and then I want to talk to Arthur about it. As we look at the building, you know, for lay people that look at it, they say, well, you're going to take a building, and what's the big deal? Because, you know, you're going to construct a new building. It's almost like just reconstructing a house. But there are things like adjacencies and how much space you have and space limitations and requirements and program requirements. Let's talk a little bit about that. As an educator, what are we looking at here as we design a building? Well,
one of the things that's most important, and then what we looked at in choosing a designer, was the phasing of the project, because obviously during a renovation, either you have to move all the kids somewhere else and start from scratch, or there's going to be construction going on while you have some students in a building. And as an educator, the last thing I want is to have jackhammering while I'm trying to teach. So there are those considerations to make. And also, if you're taking away a classroom or you're taking away teaching space, where are you going to replace it in the building? So phasing of the project and timing of the project is very significant. And how we're going to deal with the construction process. You try to maximize the amount of work that you do during the summer while you don't have students there, while it's easier to move summer school into other facilities that the school owns during the summer. But there's almost necessarily going to be some times when you're going to have an interaction between kids and construction. And you want kids to be safe, and you want the work to continue as it should. So.
It's a complex, it sounds easy, but it's actually a complex thing. And I know, going back to the OPM, you have some experience with phasing.
We do. We have done a lot of complex projects requiring as I said before, the continuation of a facility, especially in schools where you have the safety of the students foremost, and the teaching and learning experience, as well. I think what Suzanne also mentioned in this process, that there was a lot of time involved in the actual educational programming adjacencies. There are not a lot of new programs that weren't around when Arthur first opened up the door in 1975. So there was a great deal of time that was spent by the team looking at the new educational requirements, the new items, special education requirements that weren't around then. So that came around. When you started looking at that design and what we're going to do going forward, you had to look at the phasing and the complexities. And we did analyze several alternatives, of which the school building committee decided on and approved. And now it's our utmost, hopefully, request to make sure that that phasing gets put into the design process and is validated by the construction manager that we bring on, which is the builder. We want to use those terms interchangeably, but let's use the builder. When that entity comes on, they'll be working with us to validate that phasing to make sure that we're not disrupting classroom. It's an active site. We can't say that you're not going to hear something, but we're going to minimize the construction impact. But safety is never minimized. Safety is never an issue that can be compromised, and that's foremost.